Join me as I take on the challenge of making the most popular guy in school fall for the shyest girl in class. Imagine this: a red carpet event, flashing lights, screaming fans, and the world's most famous actor stepping out of his black luxury car. Cameras follow his every move. He waves, flashes that million-dollar smile, and the crowd goes wild. But then something unusual happens. His gaze shifts, his expression softens, and in a sea of flashing lights, he sees her, a girl standing quietly at the edge of the chaos, eyes wide, heart pounding. She isn't holding a sign. She isn't screaming his name. In fact, she looks like she doesn't even belong there. And that's exactly what makes him stop. Before we dive into this unforgettable love story, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss more incredible stories like this. Now, let's unravel the tale of how a famous man fell for the quietest girl in the room. Daniel Carter was the kind of man the world couldn't get enough of. He had everything: charm, talent, and a career that skyrocketed him to the top. Directors begged to work with him. Fans worshipped him. The media followed his every step. But what no one knew was that behind the dazzling smile, behind the perfectly crafted Hollywood persona, Daniel felt empty. The parties, the interviews, the endless cycle of being Daniel Carter had drained him. He was adored by millions, yet deep down he felt utterly alone. Enter Sophie Hart, the shy, book-loving girl who worked at a quiet little cafe tucked away from the noise of the city. Sophie was the kind of person people overlooked. She wasn't flashy. She didn't crave attention. In fact, she actively avoided it. Her world was made up of dog-eared novels, warm cups of tea, and the soft melodies of old records playing in the background. And she liked it that way. She never imagined that one random Tuesday would change everything. The bell above the cafe door chimed, and Sophie looked up from the counter, expecting to see one of the usual customers. But instead, a man walked in, wearing a hoodie and sunglasses, his head slightly lowered as if he was trying to disappear. "Just a coffee. Black," he said, his voice smooth yet tired. Sophie nodded, barely giving him a second glance. She wasn't someone who pried into people's lives. But when she set the cup down in front of him, he pulled off his sunglasses, rubbing his temples as if he had the weight of the world on his shoulders. And that's when she recognized him. Daniel Carter. Heart pounding, Sophie quickly looked away, pretending not to notice. The last thing she wanted was to make him uncomfortable. But something about her intrigued Daniel. Maybe it was the fact that she hadn't fawned over him like every other person he met. Maybe it was the fact that she seemed genuinely uninterested in who he was. "Do you always read while working?" he asked, nodding toward the book she had left open on the counter. Sophie hesitated, then gave a small shrug. "It helps pass the time." Daniel smirked. "What's the book about?" And just like that, an unexpected conversation unfolded. He asked questions. She answered hesitantly at first, but then found herself talking more than she had in weeks. He listened, not out of politeness, but because he was genuinely interested. For the first time in a long time, someone saw Daniel Carter, the person, not the celebrity. And for Sophie, this was the first time a man had looked at her like she was fascinating. Daniel started coming back, once, then twice, then nearly every day. At first, Sophie assumed it was a coincidence. Maybe he just liked the coffee. But soon it became obvious. He was there for her. They talked about books, about life, about things that had nothing to do with fame or success. Daniel found peace in the quiet cafe, in the way Sophie listened without judgment, in the way she existed so effortlessly without needing the world's approval. But the more they talked, the more Sophie realized something terrifying. She was falling for him, and that wasn't supposed to happen. He was Daniel Carter, a man who belonged to the world, and she was just Sophie Hart, a girl who barely belonged in her own story. One evening, Daniel made a bold move. He asked her out. Sophie panicked. The thought of stepping into his world, of being seen, of being judged, it paralyzed her. "I don't think that's a good idea," she whispered. Daniel frowned, confused. Why not? She wanted to tell him that she was scared, that she wasn't like the women he was usually seen with, glamorous, confident, accustomed to the limelight. But instead, she just shook her head. Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Sophie, I don't care about the cameras, the fame, or any of that. I care about you." Her heart nearly stopped, because in his eyes she saw the truth. He wasn't saying it for effect. He meant it. But loving someone like him meant stepping into a world she never wanted to be part of. Could she handle it? Could she handle him? One night, a photo of Daniel at the cafe surfaced online. Suddenly, the quiet little shop was flooded with paparazzi, reporters, and fans trying to see what was so special about this place. And Sophie? She was caught right in the middle of it. She could see it in their eyes, the curiosity, the judgment. Why her? That night, she sat alone in her tiny apartment, heart heavy. Maybe she was right, maybe she didn't belong in his world, maybe she was just a passing fascination. And then, there was a knock at her door. She opened it to find Daniel standing in the dim light, looking at her the way no one ever had. "I'm not going to let the world scare you away from me," he said, his voice raw with emotion. "Tell me you don't feel the same way and I'll walk away. But if you do, just give me a chance." Tears welled in Sophie's eyes because she did feel the same way, terrifyingly so. And so, for the first time in her life, she chose to be brave. Their journey wasn't easy. The world talked, criticized, speculated. Sophie struggled with the spotlight and Daniel fought to protect her from it. But through it all, they had each other. And in the end, love wasn't about fame or status. It wasn't about who belonged where. It was about two souls who found something rare and undeniable. A love that was quiet, yet powerful. A love that didn't need an audience to be real. A love that, against all odds, was meant to be. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And tell me, do you believe opposites attract? Would you risk everything for love? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, keep believing in the magic of unexpected love stories.